But the Northeast Ohio Transit Block, which to their credit has been over a lot of the stadium news, sagas, developments.
Jason, do you know any who runs this or what? Because they've been right a lot.
Yeah, they've got. Yeah, I don't know
legit,
personally.
Right?
Yeah, on stuff
Because
like
they've
this.
been mostly right with what they've reported. Okay, so you buy them as legit.
I think they're credible.
Okay, go ahead.
So they put this out late last night that a $3.6 billion, that's B with a $1 billion stadium and development, is happening and will be revealed in the coming weeks. It'll be built on the Brook Park property that they were the first to report the Haslams bought a few months ago. In their article, they mention that an estimated $2.2 billion of that $3.6 billion will be used to create a new dome and parking spaces. According to the article, and I'm going to read this word for word, and I quote, half of that $2.2 billion will be privately funded and create new tax revenues that will fund the other half, end quote. And then another $1.4 billion in private stadium area development is planned.
You know what would be funny?
Guys,
Who's paying for that?
I don't know, and that's what I wanted to ask you.
Yeah.
You want to know what's funny about this? Is that when did Mayor Bill say he wanted a response by?
August 14th.
He just got his response.
So what would be funny is, and very Jimmy and Dee Haslam is, on that day, they announced this right here, like, this is our plans, and then telling them that's his answer right there. That would be funny to me, and I can see it happening.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, every time I have this conversation, I always take, I'm excited about this, Jason. I don't know how you feel, but I'm excited. But I obviously there's some fallout for businesses and other things in the city. In the end, as popular as the Browns are, it would be a lot worse if the Cavs or the Guardians were moving out of the city.
Yeah. Because
that's way more dates at their arena/stadium. Whereas the Browns, it's only, including the preseason.
11, 10?
10 games, including the preseason, maybe some playoffs.
Throw a playoff game in or two.
Having many of those.
Two. Imagine having 2 playoff games.
That'd be the number 1 seed, the number 2 seed.
Ooh, speaking into existence.
Yeah. So, I don't know, but I hear about this retractable roof. It sounds pretty exciting.
Ain't it?
Actually, I don't know that it's retractable.
No, it's not. It's not.
Oh, it's not going to be retractable?
No.
Every new stadium's had a retractable roof. No.
It's a straight dome. It's not going to be retractable.
So this is like Mercedes.
That's even more money.
So this is like
if you're going all the way.
New Orleans Saints dome, or is the Colts? No, Colts open.
When was the last time a new football stadium was built that wasn't a retractable dome?
Minnesota's not.
Oh, it's not?
I don't think so.
I don't know about that.
I think they're called open air domes because they have some sort of like airflow through it, but it's not retractable.
That's crazy. I done played in that dome like 3 times, and I can't remember if it's open. I don't think it is open.
Minnesota?
Which one?
Yeah.
No, I don't think it is. It's all glass.
It's all glass.
It's beautiful.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So probably not a retractable roof.
No, it's definitely not.
What about Atlanta Falcons?
It is. It's like it opens like a flower petal. It's wild.
I've never been to
But they never open it. Like rarely is it open.
The Colts open theirs.
A lot of them are.
I've been to the Colts.
All right. Well, I've got us bogged down on that. Forget that.
Yeah.
So it seems like it's happening, though.
Are you going to go to a Browns game if it's a dome?
I'm more likely to go.
So you're not likely.
Although, to be fair, when I would go, I was only sitting in the press box anyway, so it didn't really matter that it was cold. But
what? What are you looking at me for?
I said nothing.
Are you happy that there's going to be a dome?
I'm conflicted. I've been team dome all along. I've wanted a dome, but I do worry about number one, the price. People have no idea how expensive these seats are going to be to get in there. It's going to be outrageous.
It's already outrageous.
They're going
to be more.
They're going to price out fans who've had tickets for 30 years.
Yep.
They're not going to be able to go. They're not going to be able to afford the season tickets. They're not going to be able to afford the PSLs. Like, that's just the reality of it.
Yeah.
And I'm just a little queasy of the fact that they're not putting it before the people and letting the people vote. But they know it would not pass, which is why they're not going to put it before the people. Like, all these stadium referendums are getting shot down across the country. They're not passing. And this one would not pass. And so I told Mike before the show, I think I told you before, I think it was Mike, that I had been focused on the Minnesota deal and how they got the Minnesota deal passed. And we talked about it with like, with the pull tabs and the fact that it's today, right? Marijuana is available today.
Recreational use. You can go to the store and buy it. Yep.
And they hadn't been able to figure out sort of the tax structure around that. And I think at one point the Browns were sort of looking at marijuana taxes in terms of like, how do we get this involved in like sports types of facilities? And I think I may have been looking at the wrong model, because I think it's for Jimmy Haslam to stand up there and say, we don't have to put this on the ballot. It's like, wow, that's bold to stand up there and on the record say we don't have to put it on the ballot. Well, Buffalo didn't either. Buffalo didn't put anything on the ballot. Buffalo just said, we're going to do this. What are you going to do about it? And
well, the taxpayer, the poor and middle class always get screwed in these situations.
And Buffalo did it by, I was talking to Tim Graham, who's actually from Ohio. Tim's one of our phenomenal writers in Buffalo who followed the stadium deal very closely in Buffalo. And there was like 450-ish million from the Seneca tribes that was owed to the state of New York. And so they used some of that money, or I think all of that money, or quite a bit of that money went into the stadium deal. But we don't have that here. So where are you going to come up with that 500, 600 million? I think they're going to issue a lot of bonds for it. I think the state's going to be very highly involved in this in terms of the funding. And that's where, like, I think the Browns are going to open themselves up to a lot of pushback on this. But ultimately, like, what are you going to do about it? Like, what are you going to do? And Mike DeWine's in his last term as governor. He's on his way out. What's he care? You know what I mean? Like, he wouldn't care. And DeWine was in town. DeWine met with Jimmy Haslam and Roger Goodell at the end of last season. They had a big powwow toward the end of the season. And I'm sure that this came up. Of course this came up. And so, like, I just think that it's a dangerous game to play. And I've talked to people who were at the ground level of Gateway, who were involved in the Gateway project, who felt like you really need to put this before the people and let them vote on it. But that's not going to happen here. They're just going to ram this through. And if you go back and look at the Buffalo thing, there's a group of people who have taken this before the U.S. Supreme Court, and the U.S. Supreme Court has agreed to hear the case of basically misuse of public funds. Now, the Buffalo Stadium is already well under construction, but there is no, that I know of, there's no timetable for the U.S. Supreme Court to hear this case. But if the U.S. Supreme Court agrees to hear this case, if they rule in favor of the people, I don't know what that's going to do for the stadium of Buffalo.
They won't.
I don't know.
Look at what's going on.
I think it's a Hail Mary. Like, they've tried it at the New York State court level and they've been shot down, but the U.S. Supreme Court has agreed to hear it. I would say it's probably more likely than not that they would not rule in their favor, but if they did rule in their favor, it could have a long-lasting impact of how future stadiums are built using public funds. So it's just something. Just put a note in it. Know that it's out there. And
billionaires
keep it on the board.
always get what they want. The
question-
NFL lost a court case just recently, and then it got overturned 2 seconds later.
So
the billionaires never lose. They're going to get whatever they want. They always do.
If they did do Buffalo's route, who makes the profit from the stadium?
Jimmy.
Well, the state would own the stadium.
There's no way. There's no way.
The state would own the stadium.
Okay.
And they would issue bonds that would be paid back over 30 years or whatever it is. And Jimmy would put up a fair amount of his own money, but he's not going to pay for the whole thing. Like, I asked him at the Greenbrier, why not just pay for it yourself? And he said they feel like the public-private route is best. Of course he does. And it's just, so when I was talking to Tim today, it was interesting because, like, the thing that's sort of like a slippery slope for me, look at how many venues there are in Ohio. Like, you got Brown Stadium, Progressive Field, and Rocket Mortgage just here. Then you've got Ohio Stadium in Columbus.
Go Bucks.
You've got the Cincinnati stadiums. The Bengals are looking for renovation.
Yeah.
So if you do this for one, you've got all these other ones, not to mention University of Akron, Kent State, Toledo.
Well,
all of the Division One.
Yeah, well, those aren't producing the money that's.
But it doesn't matter.
If anything gets done first, it needs to be Columbus, Ohio State Stadium. We need to.
Well, let's
nip this in the bud right now.
I guarantee you,
Ohio State
if they hand out hundreds of millions of dollars to Cleveland for the stadium, everybody else is going to be knocking in Columbus saying, what about us? We're next. And so I just think it's a dangerous game. I'm not saying that it's not going to work. I just think that there's some landmines to navigate through on this. But what did we say in the beginning, in the very beginning of this? If they figure out the funding, they are going to Brook Park.
Yeah, we do
that has always been the number one option. Yeah. It's a lot of money that they have to figure out. And if they can figure out how the county, state, and city can come together to fund this, to fund their portion of this, this is happening. It was always clear that that was the plan. Right. If they could figure the funding, they were going to go to Brook Park.
And that's what's happening. Obviously, as you just went through, and it was a great breakdown of everything, it's a lot to think about. It's extremely complicated. There's no easy solution to this situation. There's going to be some people that feel screwed, whether it's the fans. You're right. Every time you build a new stadium, fans get screwed.
Yeah.
Or the fans that are on the lower end tickets, because they'll be priced out of the stadium. Nobody cares. The ownership, the league, the state, they don't care about those people.
And the one interesting point I failed to make, I was talking to Tim this morning about it, and the point Tim made was like, it was a unique situation in Buffalo where the state got involved. The mayor is from Buffalo, the governor of New York is from Buffalo, which is highly unusual. Most of the time they come from, New York City or that area. And she was very adamant about keeping the Bills there. And there's not a ton of, you would think it's the state of New York, they've got all these facilities, but they really don't, because
Giants and Jets play in New Jersey.
Giants and Jets are in New Jersey. Dolan owns the Garden.
Right.
The Yankees own the stadium.
Right.
The Mets own quite a bit of so it's really not that many venues in the state of New York, as many as you would think. There's far more in Ohio.
Right.
Far more than what they have in New York. So I just think we'll see. We'll see where this goes.
There's a lot more money in New York.
Well, for sure.
So all you saying is if the Browns get this stadium, taxpayers' dollars is going to go through the roof.
I want to see how they.
Everybody else is going to have to pay. Everybody else is going to need a new stadium.
I want to see how they fund this, especially at the state level. I want to see what they come up with on how they're going to pay for this.
I told you how. Gambling and marijuana.
Well, that was the Minnesota. Minnesota was the pull tabs. And it was wildly successful.
Yeah, I don't know why.
I kept focusing on that, but I think that was a ballot issue.
Right.
That was put on the ballot. And, I mean, the Browns just told you. They flat out said, we don't think we need to put this on the ballot. So we'll see. Buckle up. Because, and again, I would just keep one eye on what's going on at the Supreme Court with Buffalo. Just keep an eye on it, because
I just don't.
It may or may not have an effect in the future on how public funds can be used on stadiums with or without public approval.
Public funds have been used on Supreme Court judges recently, and I don't think they're going to rule against.
But
that.
it is obviously it's a very conservative court, obviously, right now, and that may lean toward less government interference. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, at the detriment to all of us.
I'm not. I don't want to make this political.
Yeah, I hear you.
I'm trying to
Well, that favors the billionaire, no? Conservatism favors the rich.
Well, but I think in misuse of public funds, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know which side it favors. I think you can make a case either way.
All right, Mike. It was a great breakdown from Jason on that.
Yeah, last question on the stadium, then we'll move on and talk a little preseason game one.
Can't wait.
This was always the outcome we were headed for, right?
Yeah,
like as Jason mentioned, if they got the funding. Did you guys ever think there was a realistic chance that the Haslams were going to truly consider?
For about 20 minutes when we were on the air and the Justin Bibb deal came out, I thought, wow, this just got really interesting.
Yeah.
But
if he would have said that, if Bibbs would have came out with that 6 months ago,
I don't think it would have mattered.
I do.
I think the Haslams have had their eye on a dome since
the
day they bought the team.
Exactly.
I think that, like I said, he said something about it's time for Cleveland to look like one of the better cities and have better facilities and all of those things and be top in the league. And when he said that, I said,
except it's not in Cleveland.
He getting the dome.